Hi, my name is James Mitchell, and I'll be arguing why I believe war is ethical. First off, war provides freedom for our country and it ensures individual rights and freedom. So, going all the way back to the Revolutionary War, that is obviously where America first gained its freedom from Great Britain. And looking at it from an African American perspective, the continued fight for our freedom started with the North Wind and the Civil War. So, without war, we're looking at the possibility of still maybe being under British control, and you're looking at little to no rights or freedom for all African Americans in America and even women. The second reason I believe war is ethical is that it provides control within the world to ensure that there is some sort of peace. So like in the wake of all these dictators, war is kind of used as a way to overthrow those leaders. In an article from the Hudson Institute, Jack David addresses that the United States' preeminent military power has played an essential part in assuring peace and security all the way since the end of World War II. Another reason that I believe it is ethical is because war gives opportunity for roles of leadership to kind of develop. So some of America's most well-known leaders were first great either making decisions, in the midst of a war, or some even great leaders in war prior to becoming, presidents or anything else involved in politics. For example, Abraham Lincoln, he was seen as one of the best leaders in the time of war. And instead of kind of hiding and, shying away from the problem, Lincoln saw the Civil War as an opportunity to kind of promote his beliefs, and he's well known for doing it in a calm and poised manner all the time. And it was also during that same Civil War that Lincoln delivered one of the most famous speeches in U.S. history, the Gettysburg Address. War also provides economic gain or opportunity and development in our country. War has provided the development of weapons, many new weapons that we're seeing today, and has created many jobs and resources that are needed for war and even some outside of war. According to an article that was on the American Prospect, during World War II, almost 17 million civilian jobs were created, and industrial productivity was increased by about 96%. And it was also during World War II, African Americans and women as well were introduced into the workforce. So war was kind of seen as like a starting point for some people to go out and work and make their own money and just kind of do things for themselves. Also, war, it helps us to defend our country's status as strong and united. So in the midst of deaths and violence that a war can bring, war can also, in the light of all that, war can also be a way to unify a country. Going back to the Revolutionary War again, it kind of brought those in battle and even those who weren't in battle closer together, because they were all fighting for just one common goal. And we've seen them all come together for that period of time, obviously up until the Civil War. And lastly, my final reason is over time, historically, war has been effective. In a Washington Post article, it states that through 10,000 years of conflict, we have managed to create larger and more organized societies that have reduced risks of violent deaths. And also, war has been the source of economic, political, and social changes through those 10,000 years. And those are the reasons why I think war is ethical.
I'm Lily Cox, and I will be arguing on why war is unethical. Plain and simple, it is very evident that war is violent. This violence has lifelong consequences for physical and mental health, along with social functioning. After a war, we will always see injuries, disabilities, the psychological costs, and ultimately death. America's war history alone is terrifying. According to the Department of Veterans Affairs, from 1775 to 1991, there were 1,190,085 deaths in war. And on top of that, there were 1,430,290 wounded. So we see that war is violent, but the violence doesn't end when war ends. We have to continue seeing the effects of that violence long after a war has ended. War also goes against religious teachings. Religion affects every aspect of its followers' lives, so for something like war to go so blatantly against one's core values, it affects people physically, mentally, and emotionally. For Christianity, one of the core scriptures in the Bible is the 10 Commandments. In the book of Exodus, in chapter 20, the commandments are listed out by God, and the 6th commandment is, "You shall not murder." Now, war is pretty much just one side trying to murder the other side, and the other side trying to murder the other side. So this blatantly goes against God's teachings in the Bible. Another example, for Buddhism, nonviolence is at the heart of Buddhist thinking and behavior. The first of the 5 precepts that all Buddhists should follow is avoid killing or harming any living thing. I think it's very clear to see how war would go against killing or harming. According to the National Priorities Project, in the fiscal year of 2015, military spending accounted for 54% of all federal discretionary spending. That is almost $600 billion. Now, discretionary spending is decided by Congress each year, and as you can see, over half of it goes towards our military. This isn't a problem in itself because it shows how little our country values things such as healthcare, education, environmental conservation, and so on. But back to my point, war is expensive for countries involved. We see that citizens of countries literally pay the price of war in tax dollars. So we see very clearly in history that violence produces more violence. So entering into a war puts a big target on a country's back, and it shows the rest of the world that they aren't against going to war, which then leaves that country more vulnerable to another attack. In a rush to settle things, World War I ended in ways that was detrimental to countries involved, which left them upset and wanting better. And as they've seen before, when you're upset and you want better, you go to war. So, another war occurred to try to fix what didn't happen in the last. Continuing to talk about the world wars, but in the aspect of how war can lead to political crisis, the end of World War I led to depressions in numerous countries, like Germany and Italy. These countries were going to go under, and they were going to fail if they didn't have someone powerful take over for them. But the people that rose to power ended up being destructive and causing for more war, like Hitler in Germany. So it is due to the failing economic and political systems that someone like Hitler was able to rise. But those failings were due to war that had taken place and destroyed the country in the first place. So this war left a period of time where the country was vulnerable and ended up having someone take over power that was just going to lead them into more political crises and ultimately go to more war. My last point of why war is unethical is that it leaves damage afterwards. And so, obviously, fighting a war physically leaves destroyed lands. But not only is the land damaged afterwards, but so are the soldiers that fought in the war. Soldiers come out of war with their well being wrecked, and in a lot of cases, they have PTSD from their time in war. These lasting effects on soldiers don't just hurt those that were in Afghanistan or in Europe or wherever they were, it hurts their families too. War changes one's personality and behavior, and so, though a soldier may look the same coming back from deployment, they could be a totally different person. And this is troubling for families, especially those with children, because kids rely on parental consistency. And it actually puts children at risk of developing symptoms similar to those of their parents. So, if your dad comes home and he has PTSD and he's having night terrors every night, those kids can start having nightmares every night, keeping them up. So even after a war is over, it continues to affect the daily lives of those that were there and for those who weren't even directly involved in the war.